I'm Marisa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Hey, Marissa, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I am terrific. How is your summer going?
It's great. It's great. And right now we're preparing for some really hot weather on the day that we're recording this.
Yep.
So,
yes.
Just getting ready for that. Drinking lots of water to prepare.
That's good. Stay hydrated. You know, one of the
Yeah.
things when I think about that is every summer we go to this church conference in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So when I have that week, you and I will be recording our episodes really far apart.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the problems we have down there is it's always hot and it's always humid and people don't ever drink enough.
Yeah.
And then they get people that get dehydrated because we get almost 1,000 people at that event for a week. And
Wow.
so really, especially when it gets warm out, you got to stay hydrated.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I'm not going to complain about the heat because everyone knows how I feel about the cold and the snow. So
Right.
summer's going
And you know,
great.
there is something I missed. And I only realized it about a week ago was I never wished you a happy Leon Day.
Oh.
On June 25th, I missed wishing you happy Leon Day.
Really, I missed wishing you happy Leon Day because you're the one who is the most excited about Christmas time.
I am. And so for those that don't know that is Noel spelled backwards. So on June 25th, I should have said, hey, happy Leon Day.
Yeah, we're halfway. Now we're closer than halfway to
right.
Christmas.
Exactly. And the days are getting shorter. Oh, well.
The summer,
but that's okay,
I'd say the summer
because
solstice is my favorite day. So where you like Leon
Yes.
Day, I even
Right.
have a special pair of pants that I like to wear on Leon Day. Or
Really?
not on Leon Day, on summer solstice, but obviously I could not
See?
wear them this year. I could not
Nope.
wear them this year for obvious reasons, but yes. So, and you've got a
Interesting.
very special day coming up, birthday.
Yes, so by the time this is aired, my birthday will be past.
It will be past,
so
yeah.
by the time our listeners listen to this, I will be 57 years old. Oh my goodness. Where did the time fly? And I only feel 57 when I look in the mirror. And I say, who is that old man and what happened to his hair?
It's all age is just a number. It's all about how you feel. And
There we go.
Right.
And you know what? Yeah. And John Maxwell says, you know, if every year you're growing, then that's worth celebrating.
Right. Yep.
But if you're just getting older, that's really bad. And I think in the last year, I think I really did grow.
Mm-hmm.
I grew in a lot of my thoughts about leadership. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today was I found my why,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. So the post that got emailed out to folks this morning really was that I found my why. And I think it's important for us to talk about it because last week we had talked about our nation having its why, that being, you know, those key phrases from the Declaration of Independence. And when you find your, you know, Simon Sinek would say, when you find your why, you find your way. And I really believe that it's true. I think that, and I think for me, I was finding my why over the last few years, but I didn't know what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to quantify it. And so what I did was, and I was so intrigued by this concept. Of course, I had read the book, Start With Why. Then I read the book, Find Your Why. And then there was an online course that Simon Sinek's organization sells that helps you find your why.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that process is actually getting somebody to be a thinking partner to help you work your way through it. And so I had a great opportunity of having somebody to work with. So literally over the last few weeks, I found my why. And it was a really, really great experience. Excuse me. And I think what I was hoping we would do, and I know we'll do because you and I have talked about it, is that you and I will talk about what that process was like. And then maybe just at the end, I'll share what the statement is. And like I put in my email, it's a draft.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about why it's a draft as well. But I think it's so important for people to find their why because, so let me explain what that means when you find your why, you find your way. If you know why you're alive, if you know why you're on earth, it's easier to make decisions. Because when you get faced with a crisis, or you have choices that you have to make, you simply think about your why statement, and if it matches that, it's easy to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody asks you to do something that works against your why, it's easy to say no, because it becomes almost your constitution and I know I reference the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution, but it almost becomes your constitution, so to speak, of
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm here.
Right.
And if it doesn't match, I'm sorry. It's not that I don't value you, but this doesn't fit my purpose, my reason for being.
Mm-hmm.
So,
have you found?
I
I mean, I know you just kind of drafted your statement, but have you
Right.
Put anything through that filter yet?
No, because I haven't had to.
Mm-hmm.
Because literally, you and I think I shared the statement with you earlier this week.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it's a draft is part of the process, at the end of the process, is you get a draft, and then, Simon says you live with it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, and I think what we can do is, as we get into this, you and I can even talk about the words that I'm not so sure about, because you knew which ones I was stumbling on, because I shared them with you as I was trying to come up with it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I will say that I think was really amazing for me was in sitting down with my nephew, it was almost therapeutic. And so the gentleman I sat with, my learning partner, was my nephew Rob, who is he has a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's a marriage and family counselor, and he really is good at helping people think through things. So I had asked him if he would be my learning partner for this, my discovery partner.
Right. So
and he was excited.
So you've mentioned, we should probably jump into this. We should kind of talk about this process that you went through with him, right?
Sure.
Before we get too far.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. So see, I get so excited about it. I want to get right to the end. So the way the process works, that's spelled out in the book Find Your Why, is that you begin to write down as many early memories as you can. And what they're looking for are good memories, bad memories, anything that really stands out to you in your life. And so my earliest memories, and I know that I must have been between 3, could have been younger than 3, but I doubt it. But at least I know I was younger than 3.5, because my family moved to Syracuse from Mansfield, Ohio when I was 3.5. And the memories that I recalled were memories in the house that we lived in Ohio. And so for me, the memories that I recalled were sitting on my mother's lap in a rocking chair. I remember vividly the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that for whatever reason, I was watching the Flintstones, the cartoon, the Flintstones. Why I remember that, I don't know. And Rob didn't tell me there was any significant meaning to that. The second memory that I remembered was sitting at a kitchen table. My mom was cooking something in the kitchen. And I remember having 2 Legos. And I was playing with these 2 Legos, kind of connecting them and then taking them apart and making like a pivoting joint type of thing with it. And so I just basically told him those were my earliest memories. And he smiles and says, okay, that's interesting. He goes, now, tell me more. So then I got to memories about my youth. And there were times when I was growing up that were actually frightening in Central New York.
Mm-hmm.
There were, and I think this may have even come up on one of our podcasts, there were riots in town. There was a riot in the high school next to my elementary school. And one day they basically had us in a lockdown. We couldn't leave until they felt it was safe. And then they said, go straight home. Don't stop anywhere. I remember, and it seems somewhat vague, but I remember the house my parents and I lived in. I grew up in a very old, stately house in the Strathmore area of Syracuse, but it overlooked the city. And I remember once my dad just looking out off a screened porch toward the city with a concerned look on his face as we heard different sounds coming out of the city. So there must have been something going on. So those are kind of these uneasy things that I'm remembering. And then I said, I think I'm a bit neurotic because here are some other memories. So the memories that I talked about were my mom had a friend that was going to take me out to dinner. And for whatever reason, I put my name and address in my shoes. And I said, that's crazy, isn't it? He goes, no, just keep talking. And then I said things like, well, when I was also, I would line up my shoes or my slippers next to my bed, angled toward the door, so that if there was a fire, I could get out quickly.
Interesting.
So I'm thinking, I'm nuts. This is not normal behavior for a kid that's probably, 8 to 11 years old. The interesting thing that what Rob saw in that was what the conclusions he came to were that things like, I viewed the world as unsafe and chaotic, yet I had found ways to prepare myself to cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting. So he says, I don't think that's, a neuroses of any kind. He goes, this is actually you actually feeling that deep down inside, you can help develop a plan to work through issues that you face. So then we went on to some others. Things like I talked about teachers that I really had great connections with, teachers that added a lot of value to my life. But then I talked about a teacher that literally, and I don't know if I've ever said this on a podcast, I'll say it just because of the power in it. So I have this one teacher, and I hated trig. Did we ever talk about this in a podcast?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I don't want to tell stories that everybody's already heard. So, now at my age, at 57, I might start repeating lots of things. Who knows? But so I had this. So I hated trigonometry, and I loved band because I played the trumpet. And in fact, the only reason I went to school was to be honest, is to play the trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime the band teacher would say, Dave, we need an extra practice for this or that, I would say sixth period, because guess what class was sixth period?
Trig,
exactly. So if I could miss trig, I was happy. Well, the problem is if you miss trig, you flunk trig. You just don't. If you start missing classes, you don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember going to my teacher one day, and I won't mention his name, and I just said, listen, I don't understand this. And he just had this little smirk on his face. And I said, what should I do? And these were his words. Why don't you try killing yourself? So I have a teacher, a high school teacher, that and I was now, there was no way I was going to do it. But I thought to myself, if I had like 9 lives like a cat, mm-hmm. I would do it just to spite him.
Wow.
So those are some situations. Of course, mm-hmm. The next year, I have another trig teacher. Mr. Rays was his name, and he was a unique individual, somewhat odd. He was a fishing guide on Seneca Lake. He was never married. He had trouble figuring out that buttons and buttonholes had to line up. So like when he'd wear a sweater, there was always either a button or a buttonhole left at the top and the bottom. He couldn't get it right. And he would do things like if he had mustard on his hand, he'd just kind of wipe it on his sweater, and it would be there, like every day that he wore the sweater till the end of the semester. I mean, it was just, that was him. However, he knew that I had flunked it the year before. He knew that I liked to fish. So he basically says, hey, Dave, have you ever used a downrigger to go fishing? And I said, no, but I know what one is. So we go up to the board, and, he draws a boat, and he draws a downrigger, and he says the weight's 60 feet below the boat. Your lure's 100 feet behind the weight. How far from the transom of the boat is your lure? And I said, well, you've got this dimension, you got this dimension, this angle, so you just calculate for this, and you get that. And he goes, that's trig. So I didn't know that's what trig was. So mm-hmm. Here was a teacher that was wise enough to know how to make a connection with me, pick something that I understood, something that I valued, and help me solve a problem. So these were things that Rob was picking up on when I shared these. I found some times in my life when I was the one that, so I viewed the teacher as betraying me.
Yeah.
I had a colleague of mine at one company where I worked that that really, I would say is a close friend. I was getting ready to leave the company. I had just left my boss's office giving my letter of resignation. And there was a guy that worked there that literally was out for my job. He wanted my job. And he was, telling lies about me, that type of thing. And I just, rather than fight it, I just said, I'm going to look for a job. And so I've got that guy that I feel is betraying me. And then my good friend, I tell him, I don't want him to hear it in an announcement. And wouldn't you know, he runs to this guy that had been betraying me to tell me I was leaving, to tell him I was leaving. So there again was these betrayal things. That's like, so that seemed to be a common theme. But then also a time when I felt that I didn't do a good job as a parent, and I felt that I had betrayed my kids, so to speak. So I was upset with my son for something that he couldn't help. It was a situation in school that he just got drawn into, and it was not his fault. And rather than helping him through it, I was worried about what people would think of me because he got into this. And I'm thinking, I just betrayed my son. So those were the kinds of things that I'm sharing with Rob. Through all of that, he comes up with some really amazing summaries that I'm going to share with that I've shared with you, and I think we can share with our listeners, just so they can understand how the process works. So 5 statements that were summaries, and that's what Simon Sinek would say is you develop these ideas, these memories, you write them down, you and your partner clarify them, and then you look for contributions that you've made, you look for actions that you've helped people do. And these things are, so obviously if you remembered them, they were meaningful to you and will speak into your why. So these were the 5 summaries.
Can I ask a quick
Go
question?
Ahead.
So
Absolutely.
In the program, the Simon Sinek program that you went through, did it specify who would make a good thinking partner on this? So obviously you worked with a PhD psychologist. That's great.
Yeah, I worked with a professional.
To that,
exactly. Right. I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was just a friend that knows you, but can be honest with you, but may not know all the details. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if I would have used my wife, she probably would have agreed with me that I was just being neurotic. Mm-hmm. Or she may have just, so she knows me too well. Now, I probably could have done that with you. You don't know me that well. Mm-hmm. And you would have asked me, well, what caused you to do this? What made you think about that? So it's just somebody that can ask you the questions to clarify your statements and your memories so that we could get a picture of exactly what was taking place during that process. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Got it.
And thank you for asking that, because that's a great question. So the first of the summaries was connection with others through authenticity, modeling, and encouragement. So what Rob was looking at was the time I spent with my mother. I'm modeling a connection. There was another memory where I kept sneaking out of my bedroom at night. There was a youth group meeting at my house, and I kept wanting to see the young people that were in the living room. And my dad literally gets up out of his chair and chases me runs across the room, and I go scampering up the steps. So I'm viewing it as I was a brat. But what Rob was helping me see was that, no, I wasn't being a brat. I might have been naughty, but I was trying to establish these connections with these young people. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. So then the second summary statement, using my internal qualities, strengths, perspectives, and resources to help others as well as to continue my own development. So he's looking at times, and some of the other memories, like I had one where we had a new kid in school, and I was trying to be really nice to him, and he just flipped it around and ended up mocking me out for some reason, Mm-hmm. But the point is that I was reaching out, trying to help somebody that I thought was being picked on. And so, Rob was seeing that again as me trying to make a connection and trying to be helpful. He's using, so all those things that I thought were neurotic, putting my address in my shoes, angling my shoes, trying to figure things out, He says, he says it really is an analytical approach. The two Legos, connecting them, disconnecting them. He says, I see two things. I see connection and I see logic, even in a 3.5-year-old. So again, that was working things out and helping make connections with people. Number 3, deliberate action and consideration of as many possible variables before acting. So he's thinking about, the comments that I made. Again, I only shared a couple stories, but there were probably 15 or 16, that there was a calculated assessment of how you engage in a certain situation. 4, actions based on my values. Thought that was interesting because certain things, so even in the times when I felt that, like when I think I betrayed my son just by being a bad parent, by being more concerned about myself than him, that violated my own value system.
Right.
And that impacted me. So he's seeing that that my decisions are really based on this value system. And then 5 was making the world a better place by helping people to mine their potential and the ripple effects and compounding the beauty that is in the world. So those are the summary statements that Rob came up with based on the stories that I told him. So the irony in all of, not the irony, that's a bad word. So for me, the interesting thing in all of this was really that the profession that I find myself in now, I kind of found my why, but I didn't know what to call it. If you think about the fact that I do the leadership development and executive coaching.
Right.
So the statement that I came up with, it's a draft, is so, and part of it, and I feel bad because I'm doing way too much talking here.
It's okay.
The book, if you work yourself through the workbook, it would say your statement has to say to, and then a verb of some sort, so that, and then a result. And I kind of have this. So if they look at my email from this morning, they'll read right into it. So right now, my draft statement says this: to enable others to live their life with purpose and together be a force for good in the world. So that's where it stands right now.
Yeah.
But the nice part is,
I thought it fit you perfectly when you sent it to me too.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the help you gave me because you helped me with some wording in there. So now I gotta live with it for a while. I gotta see, can I process decisions through that statement, and if so, then it stands.
Right.
And whenever I'm wondering why things, so the goal here, and this is going to feed into next week, when you know your why, you find your way, and you can live a life that's fulfilling. Rather than just a life where you're pursuing things that don't really matter to you. Yeah. So what the why statement is just the why. We need to get to then the how and the what. And maybe we can talk about that in some weeks to come as well. But again, for me, this was such a neat process to have somebody help me think through how I got to where I am in my professional career, and to see that it's exactly where I should be. And that's why it's so fulfilling and enjoyable.
So how long do you think you're going to live with this one? Try it out.
I think, my thought is the summer. I'll keep looking at it. I'll keep thinking about it. I'll keep sharing it with people. I can't wait. In a couple weeks, I'll be in Virginia with my best friend, Tom. And I'll say, Tom, what do you think of this? How does this resonate with you? Because he knows me really well. I'll share it with my family, and we'll see. There may be tweaks, but I think the gist of it's going to stay right where it is, because it seems to fit so well what we discovered when we went through those memories, and how they all seem to fit together, even though I thought they didn't. So. And that's the benefit of that other person. Right. Because they can sometimes see parallels that we don't see.
Right. Great.
So did you have any, again, I feel bad that, our listeners didn't want to hear me talk for
Oh, I think
minutes,
it's a fascinating process, and since you've shared this process with me, I think it's maybe been about a week since you gave me some notes from Rob. I've kind of started to try to think about some of my earlier memories and points in my life that I can really recall vividly. And by no means have I done any of the extensive work that you have, but it is really interesting to even just to yourself think about those and just start to process like what does that mean? Because like you said, you just thought you were neurotic. I mean, I have a similar memory with after my sister was born. I used to strategize how if the house set on fire, how I would get my baby sister and myself out of the house. My brother was my brother was older, and I figured he could do it on his own. But I was concerned about my little sister, and so I used to just think like, well, I'm a high anxiety person, so that must be right. So I've been just kind of trying to recall some of those things myself, and taking a second look at them, and challenging my thoughts on them, challenging what I've always thought about myself, and it would be interesting, I think, to jot some of those down and share them with someone else to get a perspective.
Yeah, so write them down. Mm-hmm. Begin to write them down, and when you end up with, let's say, 15 or 16 memories, let me know.
I will,
and we'll see where we go from there. How's that?
That'd be great.
Because I tell you, it really was great for me and for our listeners. Rob's agreed to do a podcast while you're on maternity leave.
Yes.
So we're going to have a session where I'm going to ask Rob, tell me, what was it like to be in your seat? Mm-hmm. And how did you come up with those things? Mm-hmm. So I think that might be really cool.
Yeah. I think so too.
Terrific. Awesome.
Well, we already know what we're talking about in the next episode.
Yeah, so next week it's fulfillment, and how do we know what is fulfillment in life, and how do we live a life of fulfillment? Because that's when we hit the sweet spot, so to speak, when we wake up in the morning and we're filled with anticipation of a great day. Mm-hmm. So we still aren't talking a lot about food. I mean, you talked about salads last time.
I know. Did I mention my CSA like farm share experience?
No.
I would encourage anyone to consider trying that this summer. I wanted to do it last summer, so CSA's was community supported agriculture, right? And it is you can find a local farm and be part of their program, and each week I pick up a bag. I do like a regular size share, but there's like a small share and a family size share where I get fresh vegetables that are seasonal and grown right in our area. The farm that I am part of is down in Cortland, but it's been really a cool experience. And so each week,
that's great.
Yeah, so each week they send out a day ahead of time what's in the share for the week. They send out recipes and ideas on how to use everything, different like preparation tools and like how to store things properly. So I am getting like a full education on vegetables and trying things that we've never really tried. I have my standard things that I buy at the grocery store for vegetables, but this has definitely allowed us to expand. So
terrific.
Yeah. So that's been fun.
I know there's a farm like that about a mile from my house.
Yeah. There's
where
tons
on a certain
of them.
day I see all these people pull up. Yeah.
There's tons of them.
Well, that's awesome.
So, if anyone's like, I thought about doing it last summer and I didn't. And then this summer I knew I had to do it because I regretted it last year. And it's been really fun. Great. And even my husband said, he's like, it's so cool just learning. Because I pull out the veggie guide and I tell him all about the vegetables and the best ways to use them and store them and how long they're good for and all that. And it's been fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Super. Well, actually, I know we're running out of time, but my wife and I are actually going to celebrate our birthdays together, and we're going to end up with baby back ribs grilled here. So, yeah, my son Mike's going to do it for us. So next week, ask me how the ribs came out.
Yeah.
Because my daughter's coming from Ohio, so we'll have all our kids together. Oh, and by the way, I have a new granddaughter.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil the surprise, so I figured I'd let you share.
Nope. That's good. Yes, so little Layla Abigail was born the other night. Just a beautiful little girl. So she is Noah's little sister.
How many?
So that is grandchild number 8.
Number 8.
And the oldest is 6.5. So our kids just blessed us one right after another with grandkids, and we're thrilled.
Well, what a great birthday present for you.
Exactly. So they're all going to be over this weekend, and we're going to have an amazing time. So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marisa Norcross.
And this was The Next Page.